Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on how to build a world-class outbound engine. My name is Adrienne, and I'm a senior trainer on the education and enablement team here at Shopify, and I'm going to be your host for today. Today, we're diving into how to construct an outbound sales engine that consistently secures meetings with your dream clients. We're going to cover actionable strategies you can use to reduce your reliance on referrals, align yourself with Shopify's outbound practices, and position yourself as a trusted expert with your prospects. Now, we won't be doing a standard Q&A at the end of this session, and instead, we're going to address your questions as you think of them. So please make sure to submit your questions as they come up throughout the webinar. Our one ask is that you submit the questions during the relevant topic, and we will answer them before we move on to the next section. I promise it's going to be clear which section is which. Additionally, we are going to be moderating the questions as they come in to avoid duplication. So if you don't hear your exact question, just know that it's because someone has asked something similar and we are combining them. Finally, I want to let you know that this webinar is being recorded and will be shared with all registrants tomorrow. So good news for you, it means you don't have to take notes. I've already introduced myself. I'm so excited to be joined today by Jason Bay. Jason is the founder and CEO at Outbound Squad, and he's on a mission to help reps, sales teams, and business owners turn strangers into paying customers. In 2016, he built Outbound Squad from scratch using the same exact tactics you're going to learn from this session. Just a few of their clients include Zoom, Rippling, Xfinity, and Gong. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jason.
Awesome. Thank you, Adrienne. Let's get started. I'm just going to cut straight to the content. The way that we're going to do this, we don't have the ability to have everyone kind of chat at once just because there's so many people, but we want to make it as engaging as possible. So if you have questions, we definitely want to answer them, and I'll kind of prompt everyone here, depending on the section that we're talking through, where you might have questions. So I'm just going to cut straight to the content. My goal today is I want to give you really tangible things that are going to help you grow your business. Just a quick background. What you see here on the screen, this idea of invisible scripts. An invisible script, an example of this is, I don't know about you, but when I was in middle school, an invisible script that we have here in the United States is you should go to college and get a white collar job, right? It's not if you should go to college, it's where are you going to college? Just like in our personal lives, in our business lives, we have invisible scripts too. So what I want you to do for a second is think about what are the invisible scripts that your prospective clients have about people like us? When I say people like us, I'm talking salespeople, I'm talking agency owners, people trying to sell them stuff. What are those invisible scripts that our buyers have about us? And what might come to mind if you're thinking about it is, oh, this person's super salesy. I'm getting another cold call. This person just cares about getting my money from me. Right? We have all of these invisible scripts that our buyers have about us, and the data actually reflects this as well. And the reason why I think this is important to share before we start getting into outbounding techniques is it's super important to sit in the seat of our customer. So a lot of the types of companies that we work with, I of course run a training shop, so it's structured very similar to an agency. We work with some agencies, but mostly we work with a lot of software companies, Shopify being one of those companies. But what you're looking at here on the screen, this shows you what buyers really think about us, people that sell stuff. 91% of them, Gong did a really big study on B2B buyers. 91% of the people that we sell to feel like we don't know anything about their day-to-day or what they do or what they care about or what their goals are or the problems that they really want to solve. 56% of buyers categorize their purchase as high regret. So think about that for a second. Over half the people that we sell to, the services and software that they've previously bought, over half of the time when they buy that stuff, they wish that they didn't actually buy it because it didn't get the outcome that they wanted. So think of all the agencies that you're competing with, right? Your buyer in that moment when in a cold call, let's say we get them on the phone, or a sales call, they're bringing all of this baggage from dozens of interactions with people just like us into that conversation. So what does that mean? It's taking longer to close deals. So sales cycles are about 40% longer since 2020. There's more buyers involved. So think about how many people, when you're selling a deal right now, that you have to get a yes from in order to close the deal. It's probably a lot more than it was even 4 or 5 years ago. And a lot of buyers want to get started smaller. So they want to do a proof of concept. They don't want to sign up for an annual agreement. They want to do something that, hey, can we just work for you a month and see if we like working for you? So the reason, again, why this is super important is I want to kind of frame everything that we're going to talk about by first sitting in the seat of the buyer and thinking about, how does everything that we do, what does it feel like to receive that? Because if we can sit in the seat of the buyer, we can be more buyer centric and do this in a way that feels better for the buyer and feels less yucky for us as a salesperson or a founder if you're on the call selling. I'm not going to talk about myself a lot. We have worked with a lot of great companies. I think one of the big things is a lot of what I'm going to show you is stuff that I use in our agency on a daily basis to generate business. And it's best in class tactics that we've talked to companies like you see on the screen, the Shopifys of the world, et cetera. I think one of the big things that I experienced as a first time founder, well, actually, if I'm being honest, it was a fourth time founder. I've started 4 businesses and this is the only one that succeeded, thank God. But this was in 2016. One of the things that I remember getting into this business was, hey, I have no idea who I should be going after. I have no idea what to charge. I don't really know how to sell it, but you know what? Like, let's go. All right, let's get on LinkedIn. Let's start sending messages. Let's hop on sales calls, etc. So what I'm hoping is that a lot of what I'm going to share with you today is hopefully going to reduce some of that learning curve for you. So I have 6 strategies. So the idea here is I'm going to give you 6 strategies. I've actually talked to 3 or 4 of you that are on this call today prior to this call, just so I could get a really good idea of who you are. And I'm going to share 6 strategies that are very easy to take action on. And what I'm hoping is that you have something really tangible to take away that you can, it's 8 o'clock in the morning for me right now. I don't know what time it is for you, but that you can take and put into action right after this call. So each section, again, we're going to open it up for questions if you have them. So strategy number 1, I call it the weekly rhythm. How to avoid the pipeline roller coaster. So I think one of the biggest challenges in our business, in running an agency, and in speaking with several of you, my understanding is that most of you here are either founder-led, so there's 2 or 3 of you running this business. You have to juggle delivery and marketing and selling, or you might have a small sales team. You might have 1 or 2 reps, and some of you might be a little bit more advanced than that. But one of the biggest things that I experience and run into, and from conversations with you guys, is, you know what, I have a hard time finding time for outbound and pipeline building. I'm so busy doing other stuff in the business that outbound and pipeline building is something I have a really hard time finding the time to do. It's hard for me to be consistent. We spin our wheels doing random acts of selling, is what an agency partner told me the other day. So the reframe here that's super important, the best agency owners, execs, and sales leaders, they time block. They treat business development as a team sport. It's not something that they do in a silo all by themselves. And most importantly, they treat it like getting or staying in shape. I don't know about y'all, but if I had to depend on myself going to the gym to exercise, I would be very inconsistent. I really like group workout style classes. And you're showing up to a community, you're doing it together, there's accountability, there's a clear goal of the workout. So we have to treat outbound and pipeline development, we got to treat it like a team sport. So this is where I want to give you some actionables, and then we'll open up for questions if you have them. The first thing is non-negotiable time blocking. It's not about finding time, it's about making time. So think about your personal life here. Something personal to me, I don't know what everyone's relationship is with their family, but one of the things going on in my life right now is we're trying to spend more time with certain members in my extended family. And when people say that they don't have time to spend that time with you, really what that means to me is it's not a priority for you. Everyone's got time. You have to prioritize it. Pipeline building, you all have time to do this. It's not about finding the time. You have to make time. You have to schedule your week around pipeline building and business development. It'll never be a habit until you schedule it. So one of the really simple things that I recommend is having non-negotiable prospecting blocks. And there's a couple ways that you can do this, but the first hour of your day, that needs to be a non-negotiable. If this is not happening on a consistent basis, 8 to 9 o'clock or whenever you start working, make that the dedicated pipeline building block. Okay. Second thing that we can do is create accountability. I think one of the best things that I've seen and what we do in our company is we just rally the entire exec team. The exec team for you guys might be, hey, I'm running this business with 2 other partners. Your entire exec team, you need to rally around, and client-facing members as well. You need to rally them around business development. So a couple of ideas that I've seen work really well. One, come up with a weekly schedule for everyone to adhere to. That could be 1 hour a day, like I outlined. It could be blocking up, half a day per week. It could be a full day per week. But just like getting and staying in shape, you don't get in shape or stay in shape by doing something once or twice a month. This needs to be something that is done on a weekly basis, and you need to create accountability with your entire team. One of the things that I do as a business owner to create accountability for me is these types of events where my team is counting on my participation. Do a group workout style, right? You lead the charge, hype it up, make it worth everyone's time. Another idea I have, and what we're going to talk a lot about today is, how to spend the time. What do I do during these time blocks? One of the things that I love is just making it fun. Just like group workouts, no one wants to come and do like a really hard workout that isn't fun. So you need to make business development fun. This is an idea, one of many that I could share with you today. Cold outbound is a way to find business, right? But don't forget about low-hanging fruit. I really like this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise that you could do during those prospecting blocks. So the 5 is reach out to 5 marketing leads who never book sales calls. So most of you that I talk to are not using a formal CRM like HubSpot or Salesforce. You might be using Asana. Maybe you're using spreadsheets. Wherever you're collecting the inbound leads that fill out a form and sign up, look back through the last 12 months of form fills. Who signed up but never booked a call or no-showed a call or whatever it might be. Those are people that you can call back and re-engage. 4, you can call and re-engage for closed loss deals. So think about deals that you worked over the last 6 to 12 months. I have a lot of them in our CRM that we didn't close. It could be budget reasons. It could be they decided to go with a competitor. There could be all kinds of different shit going on in their business, whatever it might be. I don't know if I'm allowed to use profanity or not, but we're all adults here. I won't drop any F-bombs today, but I'll use a little bit. 3, re-engage 3 old customers. So think about maybe customers that you've worked with in the previous year or two that for whatever reason they didn't renew. Is there a chance to re-engage them? 2, you can ask 2 customers for referrals. 1, pitch an existing customer on an additional project. Super, super simple stuff here, right? So think about all of the low-hanging fruit. Before we go pure cold outbound and reach out to a company that's never heard of us, who is already in our existing network, who's opened their wallet that we've worked with before, who's expressed some sort of interest in our DMs, website, through email, etc. Go through, and we should have a weekly rhythm where we're re-engaging some of these folks. Adrian, before we go to the next one, I'd like to open it up for questions. If anyone's got any questions with this first part, we have the Q&A button here in Brand Live where you can submit questions. I don't think that there's any questions in there right now. We can keep moving if not, but if you have a question, drop it in. Adrian, were there any questions that came in or should we keep moving?
No questions at the moment, but great reminder. Yeah, folks, as soon as you come up with a question based on this amazing information Jason is sharing, go ahead and drop that in and we'll get that answered. But I think, yeah, we can move to the next section.
So one of the things, you're going to get a lot more out of this content if you engage and ask questions. So if there's something here where you're like, hey, I have this thing that I want to try and I'm curious, I would love Jason's perspective on it. Please drop that in the Q&A. Can we do a quick test too, just to make sure the Q&A is working? Could one of you drop test into the Q&A? Let's just make sure it's working. I'm going to keep moving. All right. Strategy number 2, the martini glass pipeline. So what we've talked about so far is we need to have a weekly rhythm for business development. It needs to be a part of our weekly rhythm with our exec team. There needs to be accountability around it. We have to make this an event. So the second thing that we can do is, and there's actually some questions it looks like that came in. If you don't mind, Adrian, I can tackle those questions. So Chase asked, what's some of your favorite ways to re-engage lost, stalled leads or old customers? Chase, great question. So the way that you want to think about the email and phone call that you want to make, so I guess channels and contact strategy would be the first thing I'd talk about. Anything that you do, you will increase your contact rate by 3.1 times. There's a lot of great data from SalesLoft on this when we engage via phone, email, and social. So whatever you decide to do, multi-channel outreach is the way to go. Another thing too, just because people don't pick up the phone doesn't mean the phone doesn't work. Gong did a really big study. Great to see the questions come in. So Gong did a great study, and what they found is that when you leave voicemails, it literally doubles your email reply rate. So Chase, that's the first thing. In terms of the email, the way that I re-engage someone is the more information I have on what we talked about, the better. So let's say that I'll use sales training as an example. Let's say that I was talking to a team about upskilling their BDRs. Subject line is going to be BDR upskilling. The email is going to be structured, hey, Chase, last time we talked about, and I'm going to put specifically what we talked about. What was the problem that they were having? And I'll make up something. Hey, last time we talked, you were doubling the headcount of your BDRs, and it was really important for you to reduce the onboarding time. The second sentence, reason why they didn't move forward. The timing wasn't great last time with budget, and you guys were hiring a new sales development leader. Third line, social proof. We just started working with Shopify, helped them with this exact problem, reduced onboarding time by 50%. Fourth line, call to action, worth a quick chat to see if the timing is better. So I'm going to remind them of why we talked last and what the problem was. I'm going to talk about why we didn't move forward. I'm going to drop some sort of social proof with a similar company that we're working with, and then call to action. Chase, hope that helps you. Alyssa, do you recommend HubSpot versus spreadsheet? I'm always going to recommend a CRM. You don't have to use HubSpot though. Like if you want something really, really super simple, Pipedrive's a great one too. Elias, any recommendations on asking for referrals? Yes, ask for them. Two, just do it. Two, you want to time the referral ask around when the emotion is the highest. So when there's the most positive like emotion towards you and your brand, that's when you want to ask for them. Right when you close the deal is one of those times. The moment you deliver a positive outcome. If you do quarterly business reviews, let's say you have good stuff to share, that is the time to ask for referrals. And don't be shy about it. Worst thing they're going to say is no. Cool. Let's keep moving. Great questions, team. So strategy number 2, the martini glass pipeline. Say no more to say yes more. So the idea here, it's pretty counterintuitive. I experienced this as a business owner, okay? We have people that come inbound through our website or I meet through referral. And our sweet spot is helping companies that sell software. And the other sweet spot is companies that sell professional services. So if a company is selling like recruiting services, or maybe they sell physical products, it's outside of our like zone of genius. Could we work with them? Yes, but those deals tend to take longer to close. We don't get as great results. But you know what? It's like I'm running a business. You need cash, right? So it's really hard to say no. And you might be in a position where you're like, it's kind of hard to say no. It's outside of our sweet spot. And you have to make that judgment call. But it makes you feel like you have to be all things to all people. That in our marketing, we better not say that we work with specific industries, because what if someone outside of that industry wants to pay us a ton of money, right? The reframe here is that odds are most of your business comes from a very specific type of customer. A very specific type of customer. I'll talk a little bit more about what that means here in a second. But when we go outbound, one of the worst things that you can do is be super generic in how you outreach to people and just say things like, we can work with any industry. Like your prospect wants to feel like you specialize in, CPG or whatever it is that you help people with, or e-com in the case of everyone here, they want to feel like you specialize in that. So on your website, on your inbound stuff, you could say yes to a lot of things, but when you're going outbound, you want to think of your pipeline more like it's a martini glass, okay? Outbound is not about going really wide across hundreds of accounts and companies and saying, we're just gonna mass blast everyone and their dog. It's really about thinking about your pipeline more like a martini glass. What does that mean? That means that we're going to take all of the opportunities that we could reach out to and we're going to shrink it down and figure out where to go really deep. Outbound is really, really, really hard right now. Email reply rates are the lowest they've ever been. Pickup rates are 5% on the phone. And I don't know about you guys, I get tons of, LinkedIn connect and pitch. It's very hard to get people's attention these days. It takes more effort. So we have to be selective with where we decide to invest our effort. And it's about putting more effort into fewer opportunities that we feel like are a really, really, really good fit. So we don't want to spread ourselves too thin. The way that you can put this into action is a couple things. What I would like for you to do after this call is analyze your top 10 customers from the last 6 to 12 months. And you're going to look for specific patterns that you notice. Okay. So I'm looking for things like who pays the most, who pays the fastest, who really just kind of gets what we're selling, who's the best representation of our portfolio and case studies. The hack here is look for companies when you're doing outbound. You want to look for lookalike companies. Who is in our existing portfolio? Because we're going to name drop them. Gong data shows that your email reply rate will increase by 40+% just by adding social proof in it. Just by saying we work with a similar company, okay? So I'm gonna look for patterns in employee count, department size, industry, sub-industry, niche, use cases, tech stack. Here's an example, just so you can see that, we eat our own cooking, so to speak, right? This is how we think of our ICP. We have late stage SaaS, so that's your Zooms, your Gongs, your Shopifys of the world. These are category leading companies with really large sales teams. That's one type of ICP that we have. Like their goal is standardization. They want to standardize how they train their reps, what they're doing, what they're saying, et cetera. The second type of ideal client profile we have is more early stage SaaS. So these are like emerging companies. They're not category leaders, but they're emerging. They have smaller sales teams. Like really for them, it's, hey, we don't have any systems or we've never even built a playbook before. Like we need help scaling our team. And then we have non-SaaS professional services. And then where we've even taken it a step further is from a persona standpoint, who are we reaching out to? So what you want to think about as I'm showing you this is, are there specific like industry verticals or sub-industries really for most of you? So for example, maybe you're really good, maybe Red Bull's one of your clients and you're really good at working with like companies that sell drinks. Like Liquid Death, I think is another one. Maybe that's like a niche, right? Where they sell stuff. I don't even know if those companies sell stuff on their website direct necessarily, but think about like the niches within your industry that you can really specialize in. And then here, what you want to do is think about those specific roles. Is it more marketing people that you tend to get your foot in the door with? Is it digital people? Is it e-com people? Is it someone in product, right? Is it maybe IT and technical people because they're trying to relieve technical debt, with Shopify? So I ran an analysis, and we're going to send you these slides afterwards, but I redacted the company names out of this, but you want to run an analysis where like, I did this about 6 months ago. I said, what are all of the clients that we've ever worked with? What niche are they in? Is there any patterns in the size of their sales teams? Who was on the first meeting? Who was my champion? Who is the economic buyer? So the person that really held the purse strings, so to speak. And the deal details. What situation were they coming to me with? You're going to get a lot of great intel from this exercise that's going to inform marketing messaging, outbound messaging, all of that kind of stuff. So the big takeaway here, again, is we want to think about our pipeline as more of a martini glass. And when we go outbound, we're not going to say yes to everything. We're going to pick like the sub niche. And an easy way to do this is think about your best case study. Think about your best case study. And then what if you found 50 other companies that you could reach out to that if they saw that case study, they'd be like, oh, wow, these guys, like they really understand our brand. They've worked with people like us before. Adrian, before we get to the third part, any other questions you want to pick out? I know there's
We
a
have
lot in there.
so many questions, Jason. So we're just going to start at the top. We actually had one that came in right at the end of the last section, so I'm going to sneak it in. The question is, would love to know how your perspective changes if we're using a CRM and have folks enrolled in sequences.
Yeah. So in my opinion, a CRM is table stakes. You got to have a CRM. a lot of you that I've spoke with are using project management tools like an Asana, and Asana is a great tool. Like we use it internally. A CRM it's a tool that's built to help you stay on top of your deals. If HubSpot's too expensive for that, like Pipedrive is a really good alternative. I think you can get a seat for like $20 a month or something like that. But you got to have the tools. You got to have the tools. So yeah, you can get away with a CRM in sequences and that sort of stuff. Sales engagement tools. One that I really like is Mixmax. It's a really super simple sales engagement tool. Sales engagement tool is think of it like a CRM or project management tool that's built specifically for outbound that'll help you manage all of your tools and that sort of stuff.
All right, thank you. It looks like we actually had a couple more come in maybe at that same time. Let me scroll up here. Next one's from Brandon. When you ask for referrals, does that have to come with compensation?
You know, Brandon, great question. I find that my best referrals don't come from people that I'm paying. But you can think about part of what I'm going to talk about a little bit later today is you don't just have to do outbound to find business. You can do outbound to create referral partnerships too. So for example, one of our referral partners is a company called 30 Minutes to President's Club. 30 Minutes to President's Club, they're a media company that sells sponsorships to people, and all they do is create content for salespeople and sales leaders. They don't sell training though. So the way that they're monetizing their audience is selling sponsorships to people that want to get in front of salespeople and sales leaders. So we have a referral partnership. That is a paid partnership, right? So if you can think about who is like selling an adjacent service that is non-competing with me, where we could refer each other business, and you probably want to have some sort of compensation in place for something like that. But think about that. I mean, there's consultants, there's people that create content and leverage sponsorships, there's other service providers. I mean, you should have a network of people that you can refer your customers to that they can also do something vice versa. And then it makes sense to set up something a little more formal from a compensation standpoint.
Awesome. Next question from Alex. How do you monitor the 5 practices of your sales with a system?
CRM. You need
I
a
love
CRM.
that.
So yeah, CRM is going to give you all the reporting and stuff that you need. Pipedrive. Go check out Pipedrive.
Perfect. Short and sweet. Next one. How do you overcome the challenges of prospects avoidance or initial engagement?
I think that let's segue into this third strategy because I think that this is going to answer, I'm looking at a lot of the questions. This is going to answer a lot of those questions.
Perfect.
And then this might make, I hope this doesn't create an organization nightmare for you, Adrian and team. We can come back to the questions just to make sure that we have time for everything. I think this is going to answer a lot of your questions though. So this third strategy, if you're thinking about, hey dude, when I send out cold emails, no one responds to them. When I make phone calls and leave voicemails, no one replies to me. When I connect with people on LinkedIn, they don't really want to give me the time of day. The third strategy is really about the offer. So the offer is, what am I getting in return for spending time with you? So if we think about a classic buyer's journey, a buyer's journey is never really like linear, but I think what we like to pretend is that we have a sales process, right? I want to hop on an intro call with you. And then I do some sort of presentation, and then I build a proposal, and then I send the proposal, and then maybe we negotiate, and then there's close one. It's like, oh, it's so simple in sales. We like to pretend that our buyers are really sophisticated and that they have a process. The largest companies that we've sold to, they don't have a very structured buying process. Procurement's very structured. Once they decide they want to move forward, it's very clear like what procurement hoops you have to jump through. But the buying process is not very linear. So what we want to think about is like there's kind of broad stages that we can think about. There are people that are unaware that they have a problem. So they're problem unaware. There's awareness. So we're aware that we have a problem. There's consideration. We're considering ways to fix it. And then there's evaluation. Evaluation is, hey, we're looking at vendors or tools to help us fix this problem. So statistically, only 3% of your your target market, the people you reach out to, only 3% of them are actively searching for solutions. So think about that for a second. That means if we reach out to 100 people, if we talk all about our services and what we do in those emails, statistically, that's only going to resonate with about 3% of them, because there's only 3% that are like, yeah, we want to hire an agency to help us with our ecom or to help us integrate Shopify or whatever it might be. You're going to completely alienate the other 97% who don't realize they have a problem, are not actively shopping, etc. So the offer is the thing that you can really use to punch through the noise. So the way that we want to think about the offer, okay, the biggest challenge here is you want your prospects time, but ironically, it's the worst thing you can ask for in an email. It's the worst thing you can ask for. This data hasn't been made public yet, but I just spent all of last week creating a cold email course. And part of what we do with that cold email course is we worked with Gong to get a lot of data on like what's working right now and what isn't. And they literally analyzed 300,000 plus cold emails. And one of the things that they found is that your reply rate tanks by 44% when you ask for time. So what you need to think about is, what will the buyer get from spending a first call with you, even if they decide not to purchase your services? So a strong offer is going to increase reply rates by 28+%. Your buyer needs a reason to meet, and a good reason is not just so they can have your agency in their back pocket, okay? Like we're not the price. This is me included. Having a sales trainer in your back pocket in case you need it during economic times right now, no one needs another vendor in their back pocket. So there's 3 types of offers. The way that we want to think about the offer is, I kind of like categorize these easy, medium, and hard. Easy as in easy for you to do. Medium as in a little bit harder. Hard as in kind of hard for you to pull off. Easy, the blind date. So what you want to think about is, I don't know if anyone here has been on a blind date or helped set up a blind date for their friend, but if I was setting up one of my friends for a blind date and I was like trying to get the other person they were going to meet with really excited, I would just like be their best hype man ever. Like I would talk them up, right? And a lot of times when we're setting up the meetings, we don't hype up who they're going to be meeting with. Maybe it's you that they're going to be meeting with, but you need to sell your expertise. So if you're an SDR, I know there were some SDRs and account executives on the call, and the first meeting is going to be with a sales rep or maybe with one of the founders or partners of the company, hype them up, right? Hey, if nothing else, Patrick's our founder. He's consulted with hundreds of brands over the last 10 years, like Spindrift, Sweet Lawrence, and more. You're going to get a lot of ideas on like what's working in ecom right now and what isn't, right? I'm going to sell the expertise. If I'm the founder or partner reaching out, I'm going to sell my own expertise. Hey, I've personally worked with hundreds of brands like XYZ, and we have a really good idea of like what's working and what isn't right now in ecom, but especially where companies are kind of overpaying for certain things that they may or may not need, and we're helping them stay really lean. I don't know, make up the messaging, right? So easy is the blind date. So in your emails, I'm going to show you an example of one here in a second. In your emails, in your calls, etc., sell the blind date. Medium is one-to-many. This is where it starts to get really exciting. A way that you can really differentiate yourself as an agency is by creating really, really good insights, okay? So I actually worked with an agency that they mystery shopped 125 ecom brands. So one of their clients was North Face. So when they reached out to Columbia, for example, they would say something like, and this is what the cold call would sound like, hey, Adrian, it's Jason. I was giving you a call. We actually analyzed the response rates of some of your competitors like North Face, X, Y, and Z. And what we found is that your response time to email and chat was actually the slowest. Do you mind if I take a moment to share the reason for my call? It's like, who's not going to want to know more after you share that, right? And what they did, this agency worked with a third party to basically go through those 125 ecom brands, and they looked at like, what's the typical response rate? Do they have add-ons in the cart or not? Like a bunch of different things. So they have this like killer insight that everyone that they reach out to would love to get their hands on, that benchmarks their performance against their competitors. So if you really wanted to invest in this, that's some marketing collateral that you could create with your clients. There's a lot of great things that you can do, but that is an insight. Like that is what you lead with when you're doing outbound. The last one is these one-to-one offers. Okay, these are unique insights. These are These are a lot of effort to pull off. So maybe this is like your top 5 or 10 accounts that you're reaching out to. Something like this is going to be, and this is like what we would do with Shopify. So here's like an example of a real email that would land meetings. Subject line: international customers. So, hey, Amy, I went to check out a rose padded headband and noticed there weren't any options to ship outside of the United States. Many retailers want to ship internationally, but find it difficult to manage the process and make it profitable. One of our clients used our help to capture international sales to boost revenue by about 66%, open to a quick cart audit to see how you could boost sales. So if I wanted to spice that email up even more and to upgrade that, I could say, I ran a quick cart audit and found 3 things that you could be doing to improve average order value. Want to set up time to run through it together, right? And if they didn't respond to that, I could just send them a video with the audit. I could send them the document with the audit. Like, you see that takes a lot of effort to do. That's where that martini glass shaped pipeline comes in. It's like, hey, to break into this account, I'm going to put that extra effort in, but I'm going to be very selective with where I put that effort in. So those are offers. The action here is the blind date. If you're not doing that, like, that's something literally immediately you can just start adding to your emails and your phone calls. What I would think about, I think that's really going to differentiate you in the marketplace is some of these one-to-many or one-to-one audits. What is like a piece of marketing collateral that I could create that'll help us like really punch through the noise and really build our expertise? I'll give you another example. Many of you have like podcasts and like content that you create. What if, let's say your top persona is, e-com marketers and it's heads of e-com. What if with your clients, you had an interview series that you did with like a dozen, heads of e-com, and then you turn that into an insight and you ask them all kinds of questions around best practices that they're using in their brand to succeed right now. That's like a really great thing to run through in a first sales call. All right. So before we get to strategy number 4, Adrian, do we have any relevant questions that would be good to go through?
We still have a lot of questions, Jason. So I think together we're going to have to sort this one out. First question from Justin: BDRs, do you have experience with outsourced versus FTE, and how do you set targets?
So, Justin, this is a great question. So a lot of you might be thinking, hey, like, we don't even have a sales team. I do all of the sales, or the founders do all of the sales. We don't really have a lot of time to do outbound. Should we hire a BDR? Should we outsource it? Before you do any of that, what you need to think about is how to get the process working yourself. So what's going to be really hard is that if you don't know how to do outbound and you hire a BDR to do outbound, you don't have to be like world-class at outbound, by the way, but if you don't know how to do it and land a meeting yourself, it's going to be really hard to hire the right person for that, to know what to look for, and it's going to be really hard to manage and lead them. The biggest mistake I see people make with outsourcing BDRs is, again, they haven't figured out, does this work for my business so that I can hand something off to an outsourced partner? If I'm being frank, most oftentimes outsourcing the BDR function does not work. It doesn't work because these people don't live inside of your business. They don't know it as well as you do. And the incentive is, yeah, they want to land meetings, but they're getting base rate pay from you. So I would look at how to do this in-house. You could start by hiring a part-time contractor BDR to get started.
Thank you. All right, next question from Deep: how to do cold outreaches, being a service agency and not actual products or SaaS. How to understand if they even require this.
Yeah, so outbound, the sales process is quite a bit different. Selling, I sell professional services, so I hear you on that. The sales process is very different from selling. It's not like too much different. Obviously, I don't have a software product that I demo, but I still do a demo of our training content. Cold outreach is going to be nearly identical. So when you say how to understand if they even require this, I mean, when you reach out, you'll know a lot about like what their existing tech stack is. The cool thing about what you sell and what Shopify sells is every problem that they might be having is visible on their website. You can go through and purchase something. If you're selling to brands that have both a retail component and an online component, you can go visit the store. Like, there's so many things that you can do to experience the brand and see the problem so deep. That's what you need to do when you're doing cold outreach. And yes, it works very, very well for professional services. The process is nearly identical.
Awesome. Thank you. Next question from Dave. AI has changed the game for outbound. How are you using artificial intelligence to improve your success rate with outbound? What tools are you using in your business, and how has it impacted the results?
Dave, great question. So I'm very bullish on AI. So the way that I would think of AI is um, the best analogy that I would use is red pen versus black pen. So black pen is I create everything from scratch. So let's just think outside of outbound for a second. Everyone here probably has SOPs in their business with like, hey, when we have a client that we're delivering for, like, here's a process that we follow. Black pen is going to be, let me create that process from scratch. Let me outline all the key stages. Let me document it, put everything in bullet point form, etc. We live in a world right now where you don't have to do as much of that anymore. Red pen is, how can I get something 80% of the way there and then edit? Why is that important? The reason why that's important is it's an incredible amount of brain power and willpower that you have to expend to create stuff from scratch. ChatGPT is the one that I use. There are a lot of, Claude. Gemini is getting pretty good. I personally like ChatGPT a lot, but we're in a world where you don't have to do stuff from scratch anymore. It's actually it's dumb to do stuff from scratch. You're expending a bunch of energy that you just don't have to expend anymore. It's kind of like remembering directions versus using like your phone as a GPS. You just don't need to do that as much anymore. So how does this apply to outbound? If you follow me on LinkedIn, there's a bunch of this stuff. We can find a way to get more of it to you. There's prompts and things like that you can use for all kinds of things. So for example, account planning. So if you're reaching out to a company that is like an enterprise brand that's like really big, and let's say they're publicly traded even, or they have a lot of just public content online, there is no need anymore to spend an hour researching them, trying to find the perfect little nugget to drop into your email. You can literally do it in 2 minutes with ChatGPT. So account research is a great one. You shouldn't be writing emails from scratch anymore. ChatGPT is not good enough. No AI platform is good enough to get an email that is 100% ready for you to hit send on, not yet at least. So again, the idea here is red pen. If I can get an email that's 80% of the way baked and then I take it to the finish line, that's a lot better than starting from scratch. So you should be using it to write emails. Follow-up emails in the sales process. I have not written a follow-up email after a sales call from scratch in many, many, many months. I don't know how many, I can't remember the last time that I did it. So I have a prompt where it will, I just drop the transcript of the sales call into ChatGPT. It summarizes it, puts it in 4 bullet points for me, and I copy and paste it into the email. So you need to be thinking about, from an outbound standpoint, it can do the research, it can write the talk tracks for you. I'm going to show you some messaging stuff here in a second, but you shouldn't be doing any of that from scratch. And that's barely skimming the surface. By the way, I don't know how much Shopify has put out publicly about this, so I won't share much, but it's literally one of the top initiatives for the sales org to get everyone using AI. And they're doing some like really wild shit with AI. So yes, you got to be doing it.
Thank you, Jason. Next question from Alyssa. Do you use Store Leads Chrome plugin or Built With plugin to quickly view prospect data like annual revenue, employee size, etc.?
Yeah, Store Leads is really, really good. What I love about Store Leads, it's going to give you, so make sure to check it out. They're not a partner or sponsor of mine or anything like that. I have nothing to gain from you checking them out. Store Leads is really great. It's going to give you like data on like different types of e-com stores, their tech stack, what they're using. I mean, that's like a great start. Built With is great, but I really like Apollo IO is really great for data. I also use another one called Lusha, Lusha. Like, you need something that's going to help you when you identify that a company is a good fit. You need a tool to help you find emails and phone numbers and things like that. So those are a couple of recommendations. Cool. Let's keep moving, Adrian. Okay. So strategy number 4, great questions, by the way. If there's something that's related to the topics that we're talking about, of course, drop that in. If there's something that we haven't covered yet, feel free to drop that in too. We'll try to get to as many as we can. Frankly, it's a lot more fun when there's some back and forth here. So I can't see you, but you can see me. So it just helps to know that there are some people out there and getting some value. Messaging. So we're about to get into some of the more like really tactical parts of outbound. But messaging, the way you want to think about this is stop selling your services, and instead you want to sell the buyer on what they're already sold on. Okay. So what does this mean? Most messaging, when you think about like the emails that get sent, the cold calls that people pick up, it just screams like, I'm trying to sell you something, buy my stuff, and it's all about me. The classic email that I get from so many marketing agencies reaching out to us is, hey, Jason, my name is David. It's nice to meet you. I run XYZ agency. We work with companies like XYZ, bullet list of all the services. We do SEO, we do pay per click, we do this, we do that, we do this. And there's nothing in there about me. So the reframe is the way that you stand out to your buyer is by proving to them that you understand their world. So they don't care about us. Like our buyers, the people that we're reaching out to, they can give zero shits about us. Seriously. Like they just don't care. There's no relationship that's been established yet. So to think that I could just talk all about myself and that people are going to be interested, it's as crazy as showing up to a networking event or a party and just expecting to like talk to people about yourself and for them to be really interested in you. It just doesn't work like that for me, at least. So it doesn't work in a personal setting. Yet in business settings, we do this all the time. We just talk all about ourselves. I call it prospecting narcissism. So we have to reframe that. What I want you to think about, you can't chat this, but just think about the number in your head. If you had to guess, what percentage of the time should you spend talking versus the prospect when you think about an outbound cold call? What percentage of the time should you spend talking versus the prospect? A lesson I was taught in sales a long time ago was you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them proportionately. So in other words, the buyer should be talking 2/3 of the time and you talk 1/3 of the time. The data actually shows that that is factually incorrect. It is incorrect through the sales process too. So when Gong, we did a really big study. This is over 100,000 cold calls. And what they looked at is the ones that landed meetings, the rep actually talks 55% of the time. So they talk more than the prospect. Prospecting is interesting because it's not about talking less than the prospect. It's about talking about yourself less. So on a cold call, let's say, for example, and we'll talk about whether or not you should use the phones. And we're extremely bullish on the phones. It works very, very well when used properly. But the idea here is that if you expect the buyer who did not ask you to reach out to them, if you expect them to drive the conversation on the phone, it's just too much of a lift. Like you need to come there, you need to drive the conversation, and it is about the content of the conversation. It's not about how much you talk, it is about what you talk about. Okay? So the best way to illustrate this, I'll give you an example because, like I said, we did a lot of work with the Shopify sales team. So I'll use a Shopify example here. There's 2 types of ways that we can talk with our customers. There is product and solution voice. So what you see on the screen here might sound very similar to how you answer the question, what do you do? Who are you with? When you get asked that question, a lot of times we tend to answer, yeah, Shopify is a unified commerce platform. It offers a seamless customer experience across retail touchpoints. It centralizes the data and operations and provides a single source of truth for multi-location retail businesses. Nothing against my marketers out there. I consider myself a marketer by trade also, but this just reeks of marketing speak. This reeks of like WTF, like what is this? I don't even know what any of this means. And you know what? You could replace the Shopify name. You could put any other e-com provider in there and you could just interchange the statement. So our prospects are interacting with us on a one-to-one basis. Sales is one-to-one, right? Marketing is one-to-many. This might be sufficient for a landing page, but a conversation with your prospect, that doesn't happen on the landing page. So we have to talk in what's known as customer voice. So we have to train ourselves to speak from the perspective of the customer. This is where you're going to get people in networking events. You're going to get people at conferences. You're going to get people when they pick up the phone when you call them. When we speak in the language like you see on the screen, this is where you get people to really lean in. So when someone asks, what do you guys do? It's, hey, great question. I was actually speaking with an owner yesterday who mentioned that she was feeling really stuck in the mud. They were feeling the pressure to keep up with customer needs to remain competitive, but for whatever reason, their current e-com platform was very expensive to maintain, and it didn't play friendly with their point of sale solution. Like, you notice the language there is so much more human, right? It tells a story. So think about when you're doing outreach, when you're reaching out to folks, how can I explain what we do through a customer story and use customer voice instead of talking about our product or our solution? Doing this will literally increase your contact rates by 3x. Problem-based language is where it's at. So what you want to do, this is going to give you the foundation for what I'm about to talk about around like cold emails and cold calls. Interview your 3 best customers, and you're going to build what I call a messaging matrix. Okay, there's 4 parts to this. This, by the way, could be the new copy for your homepage on your website. You can use it for landing pages. You can use it in marketing collateral. You're going to use it in talk tracks for sales, etc. There's 4 main parts. When I reach out to a buyer, I need to understand their priorities. So what are the top goals that they have that also align with our solution? I'm going to give you some examples here in a second. The question I like to ask here is, if there were a dozen of your buyers sitting in this call right now, and you got to talk to them, and you got to ask them, what's top of mind right now for you? What is your top priority? There's probably a pattern in what those folks would say. That's the priority. For those of you that are familiar with OKRs, objectives and key results, that's a framework for goal setting in businesses. This is like the OKR, right? Current solutions. How did they get the job done? Or how were they getting the job done before meeting you? So if they want to differentiate from their competitors and make it easier to buy from them, right? To be more customer centric. Maybe it's omni-channel. They want to meet customers where they're at. How are they getting the job done before they interact with you? Are they using a competing tool? Are they using a competing vendor? Are they trying to do it all in-house? Right? Are they maybe using a tool that is very DIY, but doesn't work as well as Shopify? It actually creates a lot of extra work for them, or doesn't have the functionality that Shopify has, right? Problems. How is their current solution making it harder to achieve their priority? And last but not least, aspirations. What do they ultimately want to accomplish? So after purchasing your solution, how would they justify ROI? So here's an example of what a messaging matrix looks like. And this is an example. This is a marketing exec persona that we created with Shopify. So this was for their mid-market folks, I believe. So what we found when we did this exercise is, hey, what are the priorities of this marketing exec? Well, they want to have more accountability around growth. So they want to drive long and short-term growth through trackable acquisition, conversion, retention, but they also want to make sure they have the appropriate tech. Customer experience. They want to offer a more one-to-one customer experience to stand out and reduce customer complaints and tickets. Current solutions. That's how they get the job done. Problems. The problems associated with that. Like, this is the language that you're going to use when you're outbounding. Right? So everything here, nothing in here says anything about Shopify. When you're reaching out to customers, you should be able to speak, or prospective customers rather, you should be able to speak in the language of their problems. And when they ask what you do, it's like, we just solve those problems. That's how you quickly answer in a conference type of event, networking event, cold call, etc. So that's messaging. What we're about to get into next is modern outbound strategies. So if you've been chomping at the bit for like, hey, sequences and cadences, Jason, how does that work? What should I say over the phone? Should I use the phone? What are email best practices? We're about to spend a big chunk of time there. But Adrian, do we have a couple more questions that we want to get to?
We do. Before I hand you the questions, I want to note there are some questions we got that are directly related to what Jason's going to talk about next, folks. So we're not going to answer those at the moment, and he'll get to that. But the questions we do have. So the first one is from Rashida. How to get reply from enterprise level company B2C, which is of 1,000 plus employee size. Any ideas?
So I'm going to get into some of like the techniques here in a second, but what I would think about is when you're reaching out to these enterprise companies, social proof is the biggest thing with enterprise companies. Who can you reach out to that best reflects your current case studies? And the way that we're going to reach out to them, I'm going to show you here in a second what those emails and all of that kind of stuff looks like. But we need to have a compelling reason to reach out to them, and we need to have social proof that we can demonstrate as well. So outbound really fits kind of into three categories. It's targeting, messaging, and then execution. We've talked about targeting. So with those enterprise companies, don't just reach out to any enterprise, like really look at the sub niches and where our case studies are strongest. From a messaging standpoint, we should have good persona-based messaging, like the example I just showed you. And then I'm going to talk about the execution piece here in a second.
Awesome. Thank you. From Alejandro, how do you think advertising campaigns contribute to B2B? In general, customer acquisition is getting harder. Is it still worth continuing with paid media?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and it's going to depend on how you do this. One of the techniques that I'm going to talk about is this thing called inbound led outbound. So it's this idea that we're never going to do outbound on stuff that's like really cold. We're going to do outbound on inbound sourced leads. So an inbound sourced lead could be through paid media. So instead of having an ad on Facebook or Google AdWords or LinkedIn that says book a call with us, it could be download this white paper or download this analysis of 125 e-com brands, right? That's going to be cheaper to get clicks and email addresses and like that sort of stuff. And then we're going to call into those people. So that's a really great strategy. But marketing, yes, absolutely. A good strategy still.
Love that. Thank you. All right, one more, and then we'll move to the next strategy from Sidravis. Do you have any suggestions to identify people who are actually shopping? We use intent on Zoom info. What else are we missing?
I think intent's great. Store leads is another, kind of great tool to use. It's very, very hard to find people that are actively shopping. I think one of the best things that you can do is your market presence and the content that you create. If you can create a wider net, you're more likely to capture those folks. And in terms of people that are actually shopping, again, like what we want to do is there's all kinds of intent data and not all of it's created equal. If I'm being frank, like intent data through Zoom info, like you're going to get marginal gains from that. Intent data, for those unaware, there's supposedly a way that these tools can see if people at those companies are searching for services like yours. It doesn't really tell you very much about the individuals or who you should reach out to. So you're going to have very moderate gains when it comes to that. I think a better thing is create the account list and think about the martini glass shaped pipeline, who best represents the case studies. And then what we can do is start looking for people that actually have problems on their website that we could solve for by getting them to use Shopify or other parts of our services, et cetera. That's the intent that you want to look for. Everyone here is selling something that is, you're fortunate where you can see those things. I'm selling sales training. I can't really see how their sellers sell and do outbound before I reach out to them. You get to see if they're actually having problems. But from an intent standpoint, that's about it. The other thing too is, thinking about who's engaging with content. That's the last strategy I'm going to share, so I won't spoil that. Cool.
All right, that's it for questions.
Sweet. Let's keep moving. Okay. Modern outbound. So, no, the phone isn't dead. And I'm going to talk about the phone and more techniques to land meetings. So there's a couple things that are really important here to understand. One of the biggest mistakes that sales reps make, and if you're a founder doing this type of outbound, we see these mistakes often too, is for whatever reason, it could be because we lose track of how many times we've reached out to someone, so we don't reach out to them enough, or we feel like we're being really pesky or salesy, which is probably likely more the case. We send like maybe 2 emails and maybe call and leave a voicemail, and then we stop. So there's some really important things that you need to take in consideration here. So 81% of sellers reach out 5 or fewer times, and they miss out on 15% more of the people that they could be talking to. So really the sweet spot is around 12 to 15 touches. So statistically, most reps say it takes up to 15 touches to get a hold of someone. You're going to see a 77 to 91% increase in response rates when you use multiple channels. So it's not about email or just phone or just social. It's about using all 3. All right. And this idea of double and triple taps is, it's not calling someone back to back until they pick up 2 or 3 times. It's when I call, I'm always going to leave a voicemail. When I call, I'm going to send an email. When I email, I'm always going to call. No naked activity. So you're never going to do an activity in isolation. You're always going to pair them together with something else. And you're going to increase your contact rates by 3.1x when you do that. So the simple framework looks like this. It's 15 touches over 3 weeks, 6 emails, 6 phone calls, 3 social. It looks exactly like what you see on my screen here. So let's say, so today's Wednesday. So let's say that I'm reaching out to a prospective buyer. I'm going to call them. If they don't pick up, I'm going to leave a voicemail and I'm going to point them to the email. So here's the trick with voicemail. I don't know, Adrian, do you get cold calls actually?
I do, yes.
Yeah. My guess is you probably don't pick them up.
I don't pick up anything where I don't know the number unless it says it's my
Yeah.
dentist or something.
What about voicemail? Do you tend to at least click on the voicemail to see who it's from, like in the transcript before deleting it? Do you not listen to voicemail? Do you listen to all of them? Like how do you process voicemail?
Voicemail, to be totally honest, I hate getting voicemails and I listen to it to remove the notification.
Yeah. So voicemails, the reason I ask is that voicemails across the board have a 90+% open rate. That doesn't mean the person listens to the entire voicemail. They might do something very similar, Adrian, to what you do, where it's like, I just want to click this open and I can tell in like half a second if it's someone I should be listening to. I can tell if it's my dentist or whoever that I'm trying to get a call back from. But just keep in mind, your voicemails are being transcribed. And most people are looking at the transcription real quick. They're not listening to the actual voicemail. So we need to leave the voicemail in a way that, one, doesn't look and sound like a salesperson. It's not that we're trying to hide who we really are. It's just that, hey, if we want to stand out, we can't be doing the same thing that everyone else is doing. The other thing is, instead of asking for a call back, we're going to ask them to do something that is lower friction. We're going to ask them to look at the email that we sent them. Okay. So if I was leaving a voicemail, I might say, Adrian was just on the site. I tried to check out XYZ product and I noticed there weren't upsells on there. Thought you might be interested because you could improve average order value by about 67%, like we've done with Nordstrom. No need to call back. My name's Jason. I just sent you an email about this. The subject line is, XYZ, right? Whatever it is. It's short, sweet, to the point. I'm not introducing myself at the top and sharing my phone number and all of that kind of stuff. I'm just saying, hey, here's why I'm reaching out. Got more info in an email. Go check that email out. Statistically, again, if your reasoning for not calling is because people don't pick up, just know that they do listen to voicemails, or at least will open a voicemail, and it's going to double your email reply rate if you do this effectively. So I'm going to call and leave a voicemail. Then I'm going to email. And then I can on LinkedIn. For some of you, maybe Twitter might work, or X, I guess, could work a little bit better. But I'm going to engage with them on social. So on LinkedIn, instead of connecting with them the very first time, I might just like or comment on content that they posted, or I might just follow them or just visit their profile. That's going to create notifications right there. So that's what I'm going to do the first time I reach out to someone. The idea here is I want to create a lot of noise and then do it in bursts. I want to create a lot of noise today on Wednesday, and then I'm going to be silent on Thursday. And then Friday, I'm going to call them, and then I'm going to bump the email. So day 3 there is a shorter follow-up. The way that you can think of the calls is in a few different ways. There's this idea of following the engagement. So following the engagement is basically, if I reach out to 100 prospects, there are only a certain percentage of them that even respond to cold outreach, right? So I'm trying to find people that statistically, if I send emails, only a third of people are actually going to open up the emails. I want to spend all my time on the people that are actually engaging with the stuff that I send them. Right? When I send a LinkedIn Connect request, statistically only 20-ish% of people are going to accept that. Right? I want to spend more time calling people that are opening emails, clicking on stuff in those emails, accepting my connection requests. So again, that's the martini glass shaped pipeline. I hope that's a big takeaway for everyone here, is like, go where the engagement is, right? For those of you that ski or snowboard, worst thing about snowboarding is when you have to like bunny hop up a hill to get somewhere, right? Like we want to go downhill. Where can you go downhill? All right. So I'm going to call and then email. Another hack, if you're not using it already, don't send another long-winded email to them. I'm just going to reply to that first email Any thoughts? Question mark. That's it. There are a lot of variations of that type of stuff that you can do, but some sort of one sentence bump that asks a simple closed ended question is a great bump. In the bump email, you could also just drop a case study. Oh, by the way, here's the case study with XYZ brand. Any thoughts? Right? Like any variation of that's going to be perfectly okay. I want it to be one sentence, ideally a closed ended question, something that is easy to answer with a yes or a no. Cold email best practices. We could have done a whole 90-minute session on cold email or cold calling, by the way. So I'm going to give you like the TLDR on this. I'm going to try to thin slice some of this stuff as much as possible. The important thing you need to know about email right now is that prospects are 8 times more likely to open emails on their phone. And if you optimize for mobile properly, the response rates are going to increase. So what that means is like paragraph style formatting. One sentence per paragraph is ideal. All right. And ideally, a word count is somewhere between 50 and like 80 words. We want to be in that range. Under 75 is ideal. 1 to 2 sentence paragraphs. Okay. So what we need to think about, and I'll show you some example emails here in a second. This is my inbox. So there's a couple things that kind of stick out here. And my guess is that for a lot of you, the people that you're reaching out to get way more cold outreach than I get. And reason for that is you might be reaching out to people that, you know, or the VP of marketing at a company with like thousands of employees. Like you and everyone else is trying to get a hold of them. So I show you this because you're not just competing with your competitors, you're competing with all of the noise in that person's inbox. So this is mine. There's a couple things here that just like when you look at it, just scream, this is an email from a stranger that I don't know, and that just scream, I'm trying to sell you stuff. So if we look at the top subject line, the DFY LinkedIn growth system, to me, what really sticks out about that is like this person is selling something to me. The name of their solution is in the subject line. It's a huge no-no. If Adrian and I were sending emails back and forth about stuff related to this project, it wouldn't look like that. It wouldn't be super formalized. It wouldn't have the solution in there. Like it might just say presentation prep, you know, or slide deck. Right? 611 slide deck. It'd be really short to the point. Hey, Jason, here's the slide deck, hyperlink. You know, it's like, that's what the email would look like. We have to emulate internal email style communication when we cold email. So no pitching of your solution in the subject line, right? And then look, hello, Jason, could I set you up a proven LinkedIn outreach automation system? Again, they're selling me in the first line of the email. Don't do that. All right. If we start to look through that virtual assistant, all caps, emails that have caps, Gong data, again, it's just not public yet, but when we looked at the data last week, the best subject lines have no capital letters. That has the best open rate. So we want short, sweet, 2 to 5 words tops, right? SaaStr follow-up, that's a good subject line. Jason, appreciation at our education conference. It's like, again, that looks like an email subject line. It just does not look like a subject line that I would get from someone that I know. So here is another example of an email. So again, this type of email, we had a lot of success with the Shopify group. So I want to break this email down and then talk about the framework. And then we'll talk a little bit about how to use the phones. So your first email, you basically what you want to do is reference a typical priority that the prospect might have. Okay. So subject line, Army medals and memento boxes. It's literally the name of their products. Nothing about ourselves. Hi, Kelly. I added an Army medal to my cart, but at checkout wasn't recommended additional products like your memento boxes. So again, the first line should be something custom about them. It's the reason why you're reaching out. Second line, problem. When upsells aren't offered at checkout, average order decreases by 20% based on our analysis of thousands of e-com stores. Third line, social proof. Navy Surplus saw a big increase in AOV when they added custom upsells and installment options on their checkout. Last line, CTA, worth a quick chat to share more ideas like this with you. Super simple to respond to. I think the email could be a little shorter, but it's under 75 words. And what you'll notice here is that it's formatted in a way where you can easily skim via a phone as well. Second email, a bump email. Here's the case study in how Navy surplus increased AOV by 12.2%. Nothing else. Third email, any thoughts? Right, so you can see that the follow-up emails, I'm just trying to point the prospect back to the first email. So the framework there, we call it the reply method. It's boring subject line, 5 words or less, reason, problem, social proof, call to action, under 75 words. Here's kind of like a fill in the blank thing that you can use. And feel free to use some of these as a starting point as well. But this is the proven framework that you can apply to get double-digit reply rates. So that's email. Again, we'll send the deck out to you so that you have it. Let's talk about the phone. This is probably my favorite topic. I personally love using the phone just because it's way faster. My first sales job when I was a freshman in college, this was 2008, I went door to door selling house painting services. So I've just always kind of been the like cold calling, cold outreach guy. I just like stuff happens just way faster when you can physically talk to someone. But really, to answer the question, is the phone dead or not? It's dead if you're not skilled at it. Okay, so if you're not confident in the phones and you suck at it from a skill standpoint, it's not worth using. And the data supports that. This is data from Gong in 30 Minutes President's Club. The top reps book 2.5 more. They have 2.5 more conversations. They set 3.6x more meetings, and they're able to get 1.3x more meetings kept. People showing up to those meetings. So what I want to share with you is, again, we don't have time to go into the full cold call, but I want to share with you like how to open the call, which I think is arguably the hardest part, so that you can get some of those meeting set rates. Common mistakes. We don't have enough time to make this a therapy session, and I'm a big fan of therapy, but like mindset, I think is really important to address. Easier said than done, but we cannot attach our self-esteem to the outcome of the call, okay? So the purpose, I want you to think about and align yourself around the objective of the call. The objective is not to book a meeting. You don't even know if you want to meet with this person yet. You have to talk to them, okay? Your objective in a call is to have a conversation, or rather see if the other person on the phone, the prospect, see if they're willing to have a conversation. That's all you can really ask for. You're going to show up in the best way that you can, use some of the techniques that I'm going to talk about here in a second, and you're going to say, you know what, it doesn't matter if they want to talk to me or not, or if I book a meeting or not. What matters most is that I show up and I do the activity. That is the courageous thing to do. Unnatural tonality. So I don't know if anyone here relates, but does anyone here feel like you transform into a different human being in a corporate setting or when you speak to a customer? I hear all kinds of stuff where people talk in customer service voice, and it sounds like they're talking to their insurance agent, right? Or they use corporate speak, or they use uptalk, right? You talk in this way with your prospects that you just, if someone in your personal life, like your partner, your spouse, or one of your friends would be like, dude, who is this guy? Right? Why are you talking like that? You got to remove as much of that as possible. So unnatural tonality, that's a dead giveaway in a call that like this is a sales call. And then conversation stoppers. You have to stop selling your solution and start selling the problem. Let's talk about what that looks like. I'm going to talk about the first 60 seconds of the call, because the average cold call only lasts 80 seconds. That's not enough time to book a meeting. So what that means is that most calls are shut down in that first 30 to 60 seconds. That just makes or breaks the call. And only 10% of calls last longer than 2 minutes, okay? So you need the call to last longer than 2 minutes. Couple ways that you can do that. One, I really like this idea of a permission-based opener. So what we're not going to do is ask, hey, did I catch you at a bad time? Or say, how's it going? The exception would be if you live in the South and you're calling people in the South. I used to live in Austin, Texas. It's almost like kind of rude not to ask someone how they're doing on the phone when you call them. So there are certainly like regional exceptions. But for the most part, we're going to do a permission-based opener. A permission-based opener, the philosophy here is this person didn't ask us to pick up the phone and call them. So we're going to get an opt-in. We're going to ask them if they would like to participate in the call. And I'll talk about what to do in a second. The second thing, I mentioned this stat earlier, is we're not going to use industry buzzwords or anything like that makes us sound super smart, because when we try to sound smart, we actually kind of like look really desperate and needy. So we're not going to do that. Social proof and then problem-based language is really the best. So we're going to speak in the language of the buyer. So what that might sound like is something like this. I'm just going to riff and give you guys an example. So the first part of the call is going to be right when the prospect says hello. When they say hello, what we don't need to do at that point is say, hey, is this Adrian? We don't need to do a name confirmation. You need to assume that you're calling the right person because you're wasting time at the beginning of the call if you do a name confirmation, and you're also exposing really quick that you're a stranger, okay? So if it's not Adrian, I'm just gonna let her correct me, okay? But it's gonna sound something like, hey, Adrian, it's Jason at XYZ Company. We're a Shopify Plus partner. I ran a quick analysis on your site. Mind if I take a minute to share what I found? You should be getting a yes to that question 80+% of the time. This is a very scripted way to do this, okay? There's lots of ways that you can do permission-based openers. This is just an example. The framework is I'm gonna greet them by first name, I'm gonna introduce myself, and ideally leverage some sort of social proof, and then I'm gonna get permission. Next is our reverse pitch. So instead of pitching our services, we're gonna pitch ourselves. We're gonna show our expertise. Spoiler alert, pitching yourself doesn't mean that you talk about all about yourself and your experience. The way that you pitch yourself and show your expertise is by talking about their peers and that you work with and what you're hearing and experiencing from them. So if prospect says yes, awesome. Hey, I was reaching out because we did a site audit and I noticed that you're not offering upsells. In our experience with direct-to-consumer brands like X, Y, and Z, they're usually focused on, one, increasing AOV, but their systems make this type of functionality really hard to add to the site. Or two, they're delivering more customized experiences, but they lack development resources. And it just takes a lot of internal work to make some of that stuff happen. How does that compare to your world? So you'll notice here, PBL, I greet him by name, I introduce myself, social proof, I get permission. Once I get a yes there, reverse pitch, show that I did my research, social proof again. Reverse pitch is, here is what we hear from all of your peers. The beauty of this and what you want to convey is that if you think about, like, let's say that your ideal persona is like a head of ecom. Think about how many heads of ecom that you've spoken with this year. It's probably in the dozens, let's say. You know, the heads of ecom that you're reaching out to, you know what they have not done this year? They haven't spoken to dozens of their peers. You're the expert in what's going on from a digital standpoint and a tooling standpoint, all that stuff. They're not the expert. You talk to way more of their peers. So that's the cold call. I mentioned voicemail before. You're going to increase voicemail email reply rates by 2.15x by leaving voicemails, and you increase future pickup rates by 25.8%. So in other words, if you leave voicemails when people don't pick up, they're 25.8% more likely to pick up the next time that you call them. So I'll pause. That was a lot of content. Do we have any other questions?
So we do have questions, but we are also coming somewhat close to time. So I think what we're going to do is have you continue, and we will get to as many as we can at the end.
Perfect. Okay. Last but not least, strategy number 6, inbound led outbound. I sort of gave a bit of a teaser of this earlier, but the best buyers are already likely in your network following you. So the way that we want to think about this, outbound is hard, right? And to be fair, it shouldn't be the biggest part of your business, right? It's a leg of the marketing stool. It is not the entire stool. So inbound led outbound is really where it's at. We want to engage warmish leads who might already have brand awareness. Here's an example of that in action. I don't know how well everyone can see this, but on the left here, that is a head of sales at a company called Square. This is someone that I'm connected to on LinkedIn, posted something about the fact that they're hiring. I just commented on it and said, looks like a killer opportunity. And because I've taken the time to create content and build brand awareness, that guy said, yeah, we definitely need to connect regarding rep sourcing tactics. Let's chat soon. So didn't really express like, hey, I want to talk to you right now, or we need training services. But I was like, I'm going to freaking email this guy, right? And that's what you see there on the right. Rep sourcing tactics via LinkedIn. So I'm using his words in the subject line. I'm dropping LinkedIn because it was a LinkedIn comment. Hey, Tom, saw your message on connecting regarding sourcing tactics. Would be great to catch up. Happy to share insights on what we're seeing in our work with folks at Shopify, Rippling, Zoom, and many others. Cool if I suggest some days and times for us to connect in the next week or two. Jason. And I also happened to be in Seattle, where this guy was based. And then he responded and said, hey, let's find some time to chat. So that's an example of this in action. The way that you can put it into action is what you want to think about. I can't remember the guy that I talked to, but he framed it as something I thought was really funny, the marsupial method. So the marsupial method is like, think about who's already gathered your audience before that you can just like latch onto, right? So maybe it's non-competing SaaS service providers, et cetera, that you can team up with. So think about like your audience, the people that you want to be hopping on sales calls with, who's already running webinars like the one we're doing right now for that audience? Who has a podcast for that audience? Who could you create referral partnerships with? Who hosts conferences for that audience, right? Who from an organic content standpoint could you be collaborating with? Sell by chat is kind of what I showed you before, where people engage in stuff on our content on LinkedIn and then we hit them in the DMs, or we send an email to them, or I call them, etc. Right? So one of the biggest things that you can do, and this is not stuff that generates like results right now, is think about who's already gathered your audience for you. And I want you to be open-minded here. There are certain competitors also that might be interesting to collaborate with. Like one of the things I did in 2017, our second year in business, was like, dude, we need some freaking social proof. No one knows who we are. So what I did for 2 years is I cold emailed every single sales podcast. This is how I met most of the people in our industry. Cold emailed, and I basically invited myself on their podcast. I said, hey, big fan of your podcast. Love this episode. At the time, I was talking about video prospecting, how to drop videos into emails. I said, hey, we're helping a lot of companies with video prospecting. I'd love to talk about this with your audience if you think it'd be valuable. And I got on dozens of podcasts. So that built this like base layer of social proof, right? And those were all with companies that are, they're literally my competitors. So you'd be surprised. There are certain competitors that maybe don't sell directly to the same people that you do, or maybe they do and they're open to creating content. But I would be more open-minded about that, around collaboration with competitors if I was you. And the other thing is, look for non-competing folks, people that sell software to that same audience, right? Non-competing service providers. Partner up with these folks, create content, run webinars together, hop on their stuff, record podcasts together. That's going to generate, like webinars, for example. I mean, that's like our biggest source of leads. We'll get anywhere between 1,000 and 3,500 signups per month on webinars. Those are all people that we can reach out to that know who we are, that might be in the market for our products or services. So Adrian, that's all I have for content.
Yeah.
I know you had a couple of things you wanted to end with, and it looks like we might have a minute or two for questions too.
We do. We have a few minutes for questions. I mean, I'm going to start with saying, Jason, you might have convinced me to answer the phone depending on the voicemail. So it works. Method works. We have about, let's say 4 minutes to go through questions. So we'll start at the top. We got one from Jack. Have you ever used 6th Sense to identify potential customers who are looking actively for a solution?
Absolutely. So I sort of answered this earlier. 6th Sense, Zoom Info. There's a lot of intent data out there. Give the solutions, trial it, see if it works for you. I get mixed reviews.
Next one, Sanket. Is there any way to get phone numbers? We tried Apollo, but most of the phone numbers are wrong.
Apollo Lucia is another one. Lead IQ is another phone number. Seamless is another one that you could use. And then Zoom Info it's really built for enterprise, solutions. So it's expensive, but Zoom Info data is great too.
Awesome. Next one from another Jason. Does social just mean LinkedIn?
For what you all are doing, it's probably mostly going to mean LinkedIn, unless it's a B2C brand that's like has a really great presence on social, like on X or Facebook or whatever it might be. But LinkedIn is like, if you're reaching out to a company that's a moderate size, the people you want to reach out to definitely have LinkedIn profiles. So it's going to be a little bit easier to get a hold of them.
Love that. Next one from Omer. What do you think about text message or WhatsApp message to unknown number? Does it feel creepy?
Yeah, so in Latin America, WhatsApp especially is pretty big. So rule of thumb here is you don't want to send text messages to people that you haven't had previous communication with. So if you talk to someone on the phone and the timing was bad, like you could follow it up with a text. Cold texting, um, most instances is actually illegal to do, to just mass text people without getting an opt-in. So you want to be careful about that. But in general, I would avoid texting and WhatsApp unless you've had prior communication.
Awesome. Next one from Jefferson. In Brazil, we have a more aggressive scenario in terms of business marketing and social networks, which still has a lot of influence. Do you believe that these strategies apply in all countries?
Absolutely. Yeah, WhatsApp though in South America is going to be like a really, really great channel. So you might be calling people through like WhatsApp and that sort of stuff. That's probably the only cultural difference that I would say, but the same principles will apply.
Great. Next one is from Kramarm. Voicemail is really a pretty much US thing. In Europe, not a lot of people are using them or are used to them. Any idea how to overcome this issue?
So the only like pushback I would give you on that is, yeah, it's a little tougher, but I mean, we did a big rollout with TMEO, Shopify team, and like voicemails work. So it depends where in Europe, of course, but try some of the techniques that we've talked about around pointing the voicemails to the emails and just see how it works. Try it 100 times and see what happens.
Awesome. Just a few more here from G. Richards. For outgoing cold email, should we be using some from addresses other than our normal email address to protect email delivery reputation for our core email address?
Great question. So the TLDR here is deliverability is super important. Um, if you're a small company, you can register another domain to send email addresses from. So for us, instead of outboundsquad.com, it could be outboundsquad.co. So get a new domain. You're going to set up new email addresses there. And you still want it to come from what looks like a person, not a company, right? So it needs to be an individual email address. And you can create multiple email addresses. Your sales engagement platform can help you kind of cycle through different email addresses. No more than 50 emails should be sent, outbound emails should be sent from any email address on any given day. So you want to make sure to throttle the volume for deliverability.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jason. And that is our last question because we're coming up on time. Yeah, that's going to conclude our webinar, folks. Big thank you, Jason, for sharing all of your insight and experience with us today. Like I said, you have convinced me that maybe I should be more open to my sales voicemails, which let me tell you is an amazing feat. Folks, before you go, I have just like a few more things to share and then we will wrap up. First, please take a moment to scan the QR code on your screen right now to provide feedback on this webinar. At Shopify, we believe that feedback is a gift, and we want to know if these types of webinars are helpful for you. As mentioned earlier, we're going to be sharing a recording of this webinar with all registrants tomorrow. We're also going to be sharing an outbounding sales playbook created by Jason, which will include actionable tips and best practices you can use to build your outbound practice. This playbook will be shared with you via email in the coming weeks. And finally, please keep an eye out for Shopify communications regarding exciting incentives for partners. And that's it. Thanks for attending, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.